most companies assume people know.
Yeah.
Well, they know that's what we do.
Yeah.
Like maybe you think they know, but don't stop assuming what you think your customers or potential customers might know, because you are not your customer anymore, right? Like once you're in a brand long enough, you think you're the customer and you're not.
Yeah.
Like you already know everything about the company, but most people don't.
Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Unstoppable Marketer podcast. With me, as always, is Mark Goldhart. Mark, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Good. We missed an episode.
Yeah, we were at a
I know
town,
we said
right?
that we wouldn't do that anymore, and we did it.
Good things come to those who wait, is what they say.
It's true. We were out of town.
That's what they say.
Then my house got plagued with like the head cold flu. Your house got plagued with the stomach flu. So it's kind of hard to like.
Oh yeah, the children.
And I got sick. So like talking on a podcast would have been just painful for you to communicate with me for an hour.
Yeah, the flu is, we're having a record flu year this year in the U.S.
I believe it. It hit late too. Like normally it's December. I feel like when it hits big time. Here in Utah, at least. It's like right around Christmas.
Yeah, it's been a lot of flu going around, stomach flu.
We've luckily not hit the stomach flu.
Yeah, we got it. Kids throwing up. It's always good.
Yeah. We luckily just had the head cold, which I'd much rather take over. But I had the head cold, like it lasted me for almost 6 days. Like I'm still a little congested. You kind of probably heard me like sniffle a little bit.
Yeah.
This is like the first day that I'm like, I don't have a headache today, you know?
Yeah, headaches are the worst.
And it's been probably like a 5-day headache regime for me.
But yeah, back at it. Post Super Bowl, I mean, what, we're halfway through Q1.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy that we're halfway through Q1. We're through like, you know, we're in the stage of it's still winter, but everyone's promoting spring, right? If you sell swimwear, I'm seeing swimwear ads out and about right now. People are buying shorts and.
Here's my advice on that. If you are targeting women, it's always best to think ahead.
Always.
If you are targeting men, don't rush into the next season.
Yeah.
Because with the men's brands we have, they tend to sell winter-ish, not like straight winter, but you know, like pants and long sleeves and all that stuff. Like they keep selling that up until like the cold weather stops.
Yeah, it's true.
Like all the way up till May.
Yeah, efficiency will dip a little bit on it, but they still grind. Whereas like women are a lot more prepped and they're like,
Women
I'm not
tend
buying
to just stop.
sweaters anymore.
Yeah, they just like tend to stop.
Yeah,
buying.
I'm buying.
Unless there's a good deal, like, you know, obviously closeouts or whatever.
End of season sales.
But that's my tidbit.
It's a great tidbit.
If you're marketing for women or to women, they like to plan ahead a little more. Men tend to just be like, I need a jacket.
Yeah.
I'll just get one.
I agree.
Who do you think makes more impulse buys, men or women?
Women.
You think so? I don't think so. I think women might justify their buys.
Okay. That's.
But I don't think I don't think they impulsively buy in the same way men impulsively buy. I think men will buy with a lot less. I don't want to say thought, but you know, like they're just more like, oh yeah, I do need that. I'm just gonna get it.
I agree with that. So let me rephrase that. I think that women have the ability to justify and spend significantly more than men do. But men don't have to I think men will just like buy something, and sometimes it can be expensive.
You think they justify more spend?
No.
Like they're spending more?
I think that men can justify on bigger price point things, like one-off.
Yeah.
Where women are really good at justifying the little things that they're going to buy here and there.
Yeah, I'd agree. Yeah, I think like the girl logic, what do they call it? Girl math?
Mm-hmm.
I think man math is for stuff like a truck.
Yeah.
Let's go. Yeah, like I can justify this.
Yeah.
But they'll put off perhaps like buying clothes for 5 years.
Yeah. Or this is what happens in my household. Like I can think of a really good example. This is like my wife's like spends like $300 on workout clothes or something like that. And I'm just like, yeah, more coming, like as stuff rolls in through the mail, I'm like, oh, okay. You bought another thing. And in my mind, I'm just like mentally adding it up. Like that's gotta be like $300 worth of stuff. and I don't really say anything about it. 'Cause it's like, okay, but then I'm like sitting there thinking, oh, you know what? I need to like up my golf game. And so I go and get a golf simulator membership that's $300 a month. And I don't bat an eye about it at all.
Yeah.
But in my mind, I'm like, well, my wife's buying, one-off things that get her up to $300, $400 or something like that in a month. Yeah, and I don't even think twice about this membership. In fact, I had it for like a year and a half, and the last like 6 months of it, I never used it. So I just spent $300 every month on this thing. And finally, last month, I'd use it maybe once a month.
Nice.
So it was like a $300. It's like I'm playing Pebble Beach.
Yeah, I asked that because I think how do you influence those decisions? Because you do have gendered biases in buying decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's not so much gendered. Sometimes it's just like where they are in life. Like I think a dad operates differently than a single guy in how they purchase things. Mm-hmm. I think a mom operates differently than a single girl. So,
sure.
So buying behaviors change, but you do have some visual stuff that you can use to influence.
I agree.
And persuade people.
Yeah.
Right? Because we were looking up ads. I think a lot of people are worried about Meta performance over the last 5 weeks, and surprise, it sucked for most people.
Yeah.
Which tends to be the case. Like February is most generally
people who
a bad...
are very reliant on ads, should we say?
Yeah. I mean, February usually sucks. January is kind of a lull. February usually kind of feels it. Usually post President's Day, you start seeing things pick up. It has been surprising even in some brands that haven't seen it as slow in February did this year. So I think it was a little exasperated by whatever is going on in the world, but D2C is obviously not dead.
No. But you're having a lot of people start to talk about that, right? Like, should I
go big into wholesale?
Yeah, should I
retail?
Jump into wholesale, jump into retail, but the thing is like everything is challenging. Like there's challenges in
business is hard.
Yeah. Like, yeah, for example, we had one client of ours who's been so stoked to be getting into Nordstrom. Oh, things will change when we're in Nordstrom. Been in Nordstrom for a couple months now, and things haven't really more sales.
Well, you get, yeah, like
but
those kind of partnerships or, distribution deals are actually ways to fuel your D2C because that's totally just more social proof. It gives you a recognizable name, a trusted source. Because, if you get into Nordstrom, it's not that you're going to sell a ton in Nordstrom necessarily at the beginning. Like people still might not know who you are or whatever. But Nordstrom doesn't just let anyone in.
Sure. You got to have a good product.
And the regular consumer knows that. The regular guy or gal knows, oh, they're a Nordstrom. They must be a legit brand.
Yeah, so you could use that to your brand's advantage.
We've seen success doing that, saying like as seen in or now, and even saying like, hey, you can go shop at that place, but people will still come to your site.
Remember the when we were in the diaper bag space, there was a competitor who would use the term that we were always so jealous of, where they would say the number one selling diaper bag at Nordstrom.
Yeah.
Which was true, and we weren't because we had just gotten in there.
Yep.
You know?
But it's, like those things legitimize you, but they don't necessarily grow your business in the way you think it might.
Right. In dollars and cents from that direct channel.
Mm-hmm.
Now, wholesale works great, especially like if you have really good relationships and you know somebody who knows what they're doing and can get you in those things. Wholesale also works really, really good for brands that like have a recognizable, like, I'm trying to think, maybe you can help me understand or say this the right way. Sometimes a brand just fits in a place. There's sometimes where a brand will, like a wholesaler or retailer will say, oh yeah, that makes sense. Let's carry these pants here because
Yeah.
But then there's like, I think about like, we're going to talk about these guys later, but like Yeti, for example, I have an Ace Hardware, and Yeti coolers and tumblers are everywhere, and they sell them like crazy at that place because it just fits. Like it just fits that customer, the man who's buying tools and from more of a boutique. It's not your Home Depot. It's not your Lowe's.
Yeah, it's not really like an REI.
It's not an REI, but it's this ancillary stuff as you're walking through the checkout line. There's every single type of tumbler. And I bought one for like my can, the can cooler one, like the koozie, but the opposite version of the koozie.
Mm-hmm. That from Yeti.
From Yeti.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, and that was a $30 purchase of me just like kind of walking through like, oh yeah,
this will last me a long time.
So yeah, D2C's not dead. Wholesale isn't either, but.
No, and like we talked about, I think there's some initial fear and anxiety around tariffs and maybe political changes and whatever the international and geopolitical strategies are of the administration. But just like we saw with NVIDIA's stock, fear usually drives things down really, really fast. But now its stock is trading back to where it was. There was like a little news about, oh no, China did something with like a tenth of the GPUs. Turns out that was probably just a big lie. Any news like that out of China is just a lie anyways. I mean, I don't know why people ever believe anything that comes out of China, but
yeah.
Not that the Chinese people are lying. The government lies.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
Yes, they do.
Ours does too, to be fair.
Yeah.
But anyways, their stock crashed. Now it's back to normal. Same thing with buyer behaviors, right? Like people might be holding on to their dollars for whatever reason. Like this is a bad season anyways. It's not buying season. People spent more during Christmas at this last Christmas than they had in previous. And so that you had a huge...
You have the new election as well.
Yeah, the election. So, maybe there's some things that are influencing it, but nonetheless, it's always down. It's going to go back up. It always does. It's just human nature. And as it goes back up though, how do you capture as much of that as possible? Because sometimes you can't fight against a rising tide, right? Like sometimes tides fall and sometimes they rise, and you can only do so much as a human out in the ocean, right? But you can maximize your time, right? Like when the tide falls, you can go and find some starfish.
Nice.
Right? When it rises, you can you can fish.
We say
you got to change your activity a little bit.
Like our big thing that we say with our clients is chase conversion rates, right? Like at least I say that all the time.
Yeah, chase conversion rates and chase your seasonality and chase while you can chase, because I think we've fallen into this trap of this idea of planning too far ahead. I think a lot of companies do too. Like, well, Q3, Q4. Let's talk about Q3, Q4, but sometimes like the best quarter might, from a profitability standpoint, might be quarter two.
Totally.
And last year, quarter three, quarter four, because of the election, because of everything that was going on, like you had this huge election, tons of attention going to it. And then Black Friday starts.
Yeah.
So like CPMs went up 3 weeks before everyone thought they should have gone up. And it was a mess for a lot of companies. And so maybe those companies, a lot of them, like when you look at the data, it's like you should have just spent way more in June or in April. So like,
a good example of this. Let's use an example of a client. We won't really say who they are, but
harvest while you can harvest.
There's a men's golf company that we work with, and they do a really, really big Memorial Day sale. Memorial Day is usually in May, I believe. Yes?
I don't know.
Pretty sure it is. At least last year it was, right? And going back and looking at their numbers, right? And we look at a few different metrics to deem success. Well, obviously you look at overall revenue and overall ROI, but we also look at an AMER metric, which is like new acquisition divided by marketing spend. And then we look at another metric that we call return on contribution margin dollar, which is revenue minus cost of goods sold and shipping and all that kind of stuff divided by spend. So it's like, what is your like profit per dollar spent, essentially is what that metric is. So for every $1 you spent, you profited $2 or $5 or whatever, you know? And when we went and looked at the last few years of data for their Black Friday sale, because they normally crush over Black Friday, we realized that their efficiency on the return on contribution margin dollar was significantly higher in May.
In May.
For that sale. Yet we probably spent a third of what we spent. We still spent a lot of money.
Yeah.
But it was a third of what we spent. So let's say if we spent, in the month of November, if we spent $300,000, in the month of May, we probably only spent 120,
Right.
So,
we spend a lot, but I mean, hindsight's always, you're always going to see things more clearly. And it's easy to do this with a golf brand or maybe like a swimwear brand.
Meaning seasonality, more
the seasonality, but like the obvious seasonality that doesn't fall into this like Black Friday trap. It's like, hey, when are people golfing? Spring, summer, fall. So like Black Friday is always going to fall, pun intended, at the end of the golfing season. Mm-hmm. Yes, you have, there's always the outliers. Well, people still golf in Florida. It's like, cool.
Yeah, but it's just not as big as you think, right?
It's like, yeah.
As somebody who's come from the golf industry, you used to think that like Arizona and
they're still golfing.
Arizona and Florida and Texas and California was going to keep you afloat, and it does, yeah. But like, there's just a buying season. It's the same thing for swim. Like,
well, it's
right?
still
You're
the start
swimming.
of the season. Yeah, like you have a start of a season, and even though people are golfing through the winter, the amount of, I'd say, rounds played in the winter per month probably drops 80%.
Well, and then on the flip side, in the golf space, like the amount of rounds played in the summer double, but sales dip generally in the golf space
because people are out
June,
playing,
July, because they've bought their stuff before, and then they buy end of season deals towards the end, or gifting stuff towards the end, right?
We see a lot of gifting in the golf space.
And the same thing happens with swim, right? Like swim generally for like brands will crush February to May.
And then a cliff.
And then you think like, well, people are like, in fact, you swim the most in June and July.
But people have everyone's bought their stuff.
But everyone's bought their stuff.
Yeah.
And so sales like just, they
crash.
They plummet generally. So
it's obvious with those, but these ebbs and flows exist whatever your business is.
Yeah. I mean,
and so it's, how do you spend more money? How do you acquire more when you see those ebbs coming in, right? And then how do you maybe restrain some of that budget when you see some flows going out?
Totally.
Because like you can only fight against, like we're saying, like there's things out of your control.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about some things that are in your control right now too. Talking about Yeti, but
the macroeconomic things are out of your control is what we're saying.
Well, the macro, and then combine that with sometimes the algorithm of a Meta or a Google just aren't doing what they should.
TikTok gets shut down.
Yeah, TikTok might get shut down. So there's things out of your control as a business, especially when you are D2C. And how do you mitigate the damage done? Well, I think we talk about this all the time. Like we're not a big believer in making sure you're like, you shouldn't be in every platform all the time. Like we don't believe in that. Like it's not necessary all the time. But in my opinion, the biggest way to mitigate that is take advantage when you can take advantage.
Yeah.
Right? Like if you take advantage of Q2, if you can, then you're not so dependent on a Q4. Right? If you beat targets while you can beat targets, then sometimes if there's a black swan event, it's like, okay, we already filled the coffers. Like we're okay. Yeah, it might not be the year you wanted.
Yeah.
But
less dependent on bigger moments.
Yeah. It's better to have a bird in hand than two in the bush. So when you can get a bird, just grab it.
Yeah. I think we had one client, we went through an exercise.
If your inventory allows, obviously.
Sure. We went through an exercise with a client who said, every year we do, even though you say, hey, sometimes we plan too far in advance. We still will do that with our clients. We'll plan a full year in advance, but we'll really hone in on 2 quarters. That's really generally how it is. It's like
we'll plan for the year, but
really focus on the first 6 months. Generally,
you need some flexibility in the plan. Like it can't just be we're only spending X amount every single month.
Well, you have to plan because if you want to hit a good strong Q4, you have to have the inventory built that generally comes from Q2, right?
Mm-hmm.
So. But anyways, this exercise was
also you need returning customers for a strong Q4 too.
The question was, hey, what would happen to the business if we spent the same amount of money? Like, is there a possible way for us to grow? Now, most brands in general, what we've seen especially over the last 4 years, like every year acquisition costs go up. So generally, if you're spending less money, you're going to make less money. Or sorry, if you spend the same amount of money, you're not going to generally do as good as you did the year prior. We've just seen that, right?
Yeah.
Because cost per reach has gone up. Cost per impressions are going up. That's just how it is, right? Reach has significantly dropped for most brands on the organic side. So unless you're making up the difference, it's going to be challenging. Okay. Let's just get that out of the way. You don't really make any changes. If you make just this one change that we're talking about, which is mitigating maximizing success and mitigating the lower moments, that could either help you make the same that you did last year or even more by saying, okay, if my budget's $1 million in a year, let's just say for the sake of math, $1.2 million in a year.
Right.
Most people look at that and be like, okay, I'm going to spend $100,000 a month. Like a lot of people just will generally do that. Or maybe they'll say, okay, hey, I'm going to spend $300,000 in November, but the rest is I'm going to evenly space that out.
And some of this does depend on what your consideration time window is.
For sure. If you start to look at your research, look at your data over the last 2 years, 3 years, and see when the highest converting moments are for your brand, and you start to say, hey, actually, what if we put 20% of our budget into this month versus the 4 that we have scheduled, you're going to be able to maximize your profits significantly more because you're maximizing the moments and mitigating the risky times, right? That's really what we're kind of saying. That's what this message is.
Yep.
In a nutshell.
Yeah, I just don't think anyone takes full advantage of those moments.
No.
Where you could probably relax a lot more during a...
Yeah.
And that's usually a planning issue. Stop looking at things in months and look at things in quarters.
It's a planning issue and it's a data gathering issue.
In halves.
Yeah.
You have H1 and H2. Just know every month's going to be different. Everyone knows this, but for some reason a lot of companies have a hard time actually planning for it.
Yeah.
Everyone knows every month's different.
Yeah.
Everyone knows Q1's different than Q4. But for some reason, the planning tends to be month to month.
Treating it all very similar, yeah.
So you should really have quarterly and years planned.
Yeah.
Rather than a monthly goal of profit. It should be quarterly goals of profit.
An action item everyone should do right now, if you're not doing this, is you should have over the last, have somebody on your team or yourself go through the last 4 years worth of sales, like promotional months or promotional times. So if you had a Memorial Day sale, that was a 3-day sale, go and figure out what those days were, what the promo was, like what the offer was, and then figure out what your revenue and spend and your new revenue is, and go look at those year over year for the past 2 to 4 years. And then that can start to help you do what we're talking about, right? So you can find the special moments, then you can start looking at things month to month, quarter by quarter, and then start really saying, oh my goodness, I should be spending actually double what I'm normally spending in Q2. And I probably don't have to spend 40% of my budget in Q4 if I do that.
Or Q3, yeah.
Yeah. And what you might end up actually realizing is if you do it right in Q2, for example, you could actually still end up spending that same amount of money because you are more profitable. You still could end up spending a lot more because you maximize profits here. Make sense?
Yeah. You
don't have to, right? But
depends on the strategy.
Yeah, it depends on what your cash flow looks like. But
yeah.
So yeah.
And the other thing to do is, we talk about it all the time though, is how do you talk to your specific audience? And Yeti just reported their best year ever
in D2C.
And so we took a moment and just like looked at some of their ads and what they're doing. They just reported $1 billion, I believe, in D2C sales.
In just D2C year alone. Yeah.
Yeah, in just D2C.
And most people probably don't look at Yeti as a D2C brand.
No, probably not.
Like and I say that generally because Yeti's known for their coolers, right?
Well, yeah, and their tumbler. I don't know what they're known for more now, but
I mean, if you go look at their ads, it's a pretty good mixture between
coolers and
tumblers, right? But tumblers were definitely the ancillary added item. It wasn't the standout item.
At the beginning,
item.
It was, for sure. I don't know. I didn't look at what the data is of the split.
Yeah.
But their coolers. But I mean, I guess first and foremost, like, what is Yeti known for? They've really built their brand around durability.
Durability and long-lasting coolness. That's what I would say. Like their products keep things cooler than anything else. Okay. And it was because of how durable.
When you said long-lasting coolness, I was like,
like thinking like it's a cool, like hey, that's a sick product.
Like it is, but yeah, like it's all about like rugged durability and
they were like
functionality of keeping things cold. Yeah,
essentially you could go camping for 4 days and your stuff would never be warm.
Yeah,
like that was their differentiator than the igloo coolers.
Like you could stand on it, right? It was one of the first coolers that you saw out there that was like, oh, like you could just stand on it, you can sit on it, you can throw it.
Well, that's what they would do. Like their early ads were like, this doubles as a fridge and like a table
or a seat.
You know,
they'd show it off on boats and doing the activities that, you know, you'd classify as rugged, like hunting and fishing and whatever, exploring. So,
but one thing, can I say, because I think you're getting to this point too, but one thing that I've noticed with Yeti is, so a lot of people came in and Yeti didn't have any sort of IP on making their coolers colder than everyone else. Right? They might have maybe certain technology.
I don't think so.
Well, they didn't,
but it's not,
because other people have come out.
Everyone can make one.
Yeah, there are knockoffs.
They're just one of the first to say, hey, instead of buying a $60 cooler that keeps your stuff cold for an hour, buy a $180 cooler that'll keep your stuff cold for
4 days.
2 days, 3 days, 4 days.
Now, other people have come out and done that.
Yeah.
So what you've seen Yeti do over the past couple of years, as other people have kind of broke into that market, is it's the same thing with like, was it Hydro Flask? Remember when Hydro Flask came out? And they were the first person who kept a bottle, a bottle of water colder than 30 minutes.
I mean, they're the first tumbler, really, I think.
Yeah, exactly. So now you're seeing Yeti double down on durability. Like, this is the last cooler you'll ever need to buy. that's kind of the direction they're going down. Because everyone's already...
Yeah.
And we just watched an ad.
Like rugged durability. And so what they're doing is something so simple, but most brands refuse to do it. And they're actually just showing people how durable or functional the product is.
Yeah.
So everyone just like avoids the obvious for whatever reason. Like if you have something that's easy to clean, like just show how easy it is to clean it. Like if you have a product that, you know, is designed for a specific use case, like most people never even show it in that use case.
Yeah. And part of the reason...
Like if you have one, for example, like if you have pants that are supposedly no rip or no tear...
Go put it through the
Why
ringer.
is it not in an ad or video being tested and stress tested?
Yeah.
Like it's crazy to me that no one does this, but Yeti does that in creative, fun ways, right? Like their coolers have always been advertised as bear safe.
Yes.
But I'm sure they've had these ads in the past, but right now they're running some really cool ads showing that cooler being thrown in with polar bears.
Yeah, there's 2 polar bears.
Which are the biggest and strongest of all bears.
Yeah. And I think they put like a bowling ball in it to make it also super heavy on the inside. So like not only let's see what these polar bears
because it has to be able to contain it and not break open.
Yeah, so it's not just like on the outside, but they're putting something that generally wouldn't normally, that type of weight wouldn't normally be in a cooler.
Yeah, and like, is it necessary to have a cooler that strong? No.
But that's what advertising is,
like,
right?
I mean, how many of us are going out to like the Alaska frontier and dealing with bears? Like no, like almost nobody.
Right.
But everyone sees a video of it being stress tested through a bear and goes, oh yeah, like that's cool. I need that.
Totally.
If it can handle a bear, like it's going to handle get falling out of my trunk.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not going to, I'm not this, because those are investments, right? Like you get a cooler at like a grocery store for $30-$40
and you hate it.
And that's not a bad, like that's a pretty easy impulse buy. Hey, I need something quick for the lake. Right.
But you always end up hating those coolers.
Yeah.
They're just miserable.
Yeah. But the Yeti is, I can't remember. We should have looked. It's probably between $180 to $350 or maybe even more, depending on how big it is.
Yeah. Full disclosure. I have 2 Yeti coolers and I've had them for over 10 years or about 10 years.
Yeah. So they do these durability tests, right? So they're literally showing polar bears like trying to get in and wreck this. And we'll hopefully there's a video showing this ad, right? Of like really trying to get into it. And then they open it up and all the stuff in there is contained. And then another video they're doing right now is they're going to the top of the Yeti headquarters building and they're dropping their new rollaway cooler. And the reason why they're doing that one is because they have wheels,
just
and
to
the
show
wheels
that, like,
can break.
Yeah,
right?
like wheels often are
the first thing to go on those things.
If you've ever had like a pulling cooler, you know.
And they drop it and they hit.
Break.
The whole point is to hit every like angle
or
and
corner.
then they're showing the wheels are still moving after. So it's this like 30-foot drop onto asphalt. That just shows great. Like you can't beat that.
You
right?
can't you really can't beat true functionality. And most companies assume people know.
Yeah.
Well, they know that's what we do.
Yeah.
And maybe you think they know, but don't stop assuming what you think your customers or potential customers might know, because you are not your customer anymore, right? Like once you're in a brand long enough, you think you're the customer and you're not.
Yeah.
Like you already know everything about the company, but most people don't.
The other thing that I think is a good thing to note is we're gone are the days to just say highest quality cooler. Right? Like we don't trust brands saying things like that. So that
trust is going to be eroded even faster with AI.
Totally.
And I think UGC has also eroded a little bit of trust. That's no data here. This is just me looking at UGC data.
It's super good. It's just not it's not effective in the same ways as it used to be. It's still effective as long as it's
used to be
right.
top funnel. It used to be everywhere, but
totally.
we've seen a pretty hard diminished return on top funnel stuff.
Yeah, but everyone can put a pair of pants in a static image and say highest quality pants. It's just really easy to do it.
Yes, they
and
can.
Every brand does it. But
yes, like what does that even? What does that mean?
If you can show the pants as going through a situation that shows that they are the highest quality, if you can show a cooler getting dropped from 40 feet up or getting mauled by a polar bear, if you can show, if you claim that you have the best tasting drink, let me talk about valuations, right? Like, so Olipop just got valued at $1.85 billion by JP Morgan. They just did like they just raised $50 more million.
Oh, wow.
Olipop can say, hey, we're the best tasting soda, under 5 grams of sugar. But Poppy says that too, right? So who do you buy? Versus you going to a grocery store, for example, and filming people taste testing your product up against like Coke.
Well, I mean,
that's a whole different thing, right? Like you're showing how people
actually, yeah.
Versus.
Well, I think we forget that advertising is a visual and auditory medium. So you are forgetting there are 2 other senses that people do not engage with when they are seeing an ad. So smell and touch and taste.
Yeah.
So 3. Sorry, yeah. I said 2. So smell, touch, taste. They don't get to do any of that with your product. So a lot of people forget that the point of an ad is, yes, like there's convincing to do, but you also have to make up for the fact that
you're missing 3 senses.
You are missing more than half of the senses that people use to gauge something.
To make a decision about something. Yeah.
I mean, this is just like how humans are made.
Right.
I mean, just go look up the studies about smells and women and men and dating and these are natural
just think about
things.
The last time you went to a restaurant
that are subconscious.
Right? Like,
yes.
Are you going to look at the thing that's in front of your plate, and if it looks disgusting, are you going to eat it? If it smells disgusting, are you going to try to taste it?
Only if you have someone vouching for it.
Yeah. No, if you have somebody who said, hey, I know it looks bad.
But that's what you get?
Yeah.
So how do you make up for those senses? And because most people say, let's take a baby brand, for example. If you're a baby brand, and we know that there's a baby brand that listens to this, if you're a baby brand that says that your fabric is soft and gentle and that it's stretchy and breathable, my question for you is, have you ever demonstrated that? Visually demonstrated that in an ad?
Yeah.
Because I think everyone just assumes, well, like it's stretchy and breathable.
Right.
But what does that mean? How do you actually say this is how stretchy it is?
Totally.
And we're not telling you this is going to for sure work, but we're just saying like that's an ad idea that you should be testing tomorrow because it's something you can do on an iPhone in an office. You don't have to have even a baby for those kinds of demonstrations.
Right.
Like Yeti coolers and their product demonstration ads, their stress test ads is what we'll call them. There's not food, like they're not actually showing it in like usable situations.
They're not showing like ice in a cooler and how things are cold.
They're just showing this is the feature that we're showcasing, and then we're taking it to the extremes.
Yeah.
So if it's stretchy, how stretchy is it? Like how much can a baby grow into something that they buy from you?
Yeah.
How long will it last? Like, can you demonstrate that? Maybe get some balloons, maybe fill up maybe find a funny, clever way to say, hey, how much can this grow with your kid?
Right.
Okay, now you actually have visually demonstrated how stretchy it might be.
Totally.
Instead of just like, oh, well, it's stretchy. Like here's a picture of one baby wearing it.
Totally.
So that's my recommendation is after watching the Yeti ads, like it's just really come to our minds and to our attention that, man, a lot of people are just simply missing showing the product getting used in an exaggerated way to visualize a feature.
Exactly. A way that's never going to get used in real life. However, it shows exactly what you're going to get. If you're taking it out of your boat and it drops 6 feet up,
right?
What is going to happen? It's not going to crack in half. The wheel's not going to fall off. Because that is something, right? Like, I would be nervous about that. We go boating, if I'm taking a big cooler, and we've got a Yeti cooler that I've lifted off of that. And some of those boats, like our boat my sister-in-law fell off of it and like almost broke her leg. It's a big drop. And that's like something I think about every time I'm lifting that Yeti cooler down. I'm like, I don't want to drop this. This is $300,
But now you know
But now I know.
It'll be fine.
If I drop it, we're okay.
I've dropped mine off of some steep
stuff.
Ledges.
Yeah. So visual demonstrations in an exaggerated way. That's kind of the consensus here.
I've dropped mine off steep ledges because I also mostly use it as like an extra chair around the campfire.
Yeah.
So like after we take stuff out of it, it's always being used as a chair.
Yeah. Or a stepping stool or something.
Yeah. I mean, it is my stepping stool.
Yeah.
It is my cooler we take, and it is what I use to like get up to stuff. I'm not a tall guy, so
sure.
An extra 14 inches really helps.
So the lessons here are like, okay, maximize moments, key moments.
Yes, maximize key moments of seasonality and make sure your content is showcasing what your actual propositions are.
Yeah. Don't just say
your value props.
Don't just say what a value proposition is.
Demonstrate
it. And don't just say, because I'm looking at how other people might do this, right? They might go and say, let's just take the cooler, high quality, and they're just putting it in dirt, or something like that, like rugged, and it's sitting on rocks. Like that's how I imagine most people are going to do that.
Yeah.
Versus, why don't you throw that down a hill and just have it and see what happens?
Like, is it rugged?
Yeah. I mean, we had this conversation with, I know we brought up Haven Tents a couple times now, and he's just getting great airtime here, but like he was showing us pictures. He says that that was the hammock tent company that we had on a few weeks ago.
Yeah, he was showing us videos of a stress test.
He was showing videos of stress tests, and the way he stress tests is he put, it's bags of salt. He put salt bags on it.
Which I think they're 50 pounds each. So,
and he had got like, both of us guessed wrong. Like
it was way more. It was way more than we would have ever thought, and I guarantee that video crushes for him.
Yeah, but
I don't think he's released it yet.
But he didn't run it as an ad, I don't think. And he
hasn't released it yet.
Yeah,
that product is not released.
But we were saying like, hey, that should be the ad you run with.
But when he releases it, I guarantee
that'll be the best performing ad by far.
That video will crush it because it's like you can't even believe it's possible. Yeah. So that's all we wanted to get out today is seasonality. Like, if you're freaking out about January or early February, you're probably in good company. A lot of people are. But just take a deep breath. Like,
yeah,
buyers aren't going anywhere. Like, buyers are coming back, and take advantage of when they are coming back. Like, you can't always convince everyone to buy at whenever.
Yeah.
But you can be planting those seeds. For example, going back to Yeti, a cooler is not something that anyone is just like, oh, I need to get a Yeti cooler now.
Yep.
But their constant strategy of creating content helps you make that decision when you do need to go get a cooler.
Yeah.
Right?
100%.
So, yeah, I don't need a cooler right now. I don't need anything from Yeti. But do you know what I am going to get before camping season this year from Yeti is we need some more tumblers.
Yeah.
Sorry, Stanley and everyone else. We're a Yeti family, so.
The CEO of Stanley is listening and is so mad.
Sorry, guys. Unless you want to send me some stuff and prove me wrong, but
yeah,
we're a Yeti family. So I do need to get some Yetis. They're top of mind because they're always showing cool stuff. Yeah. And they have a very loyal audience base because their brand is consistent, right? Like they are advertising to a specific core audience and they don't really veer away from it.
Yeah.
Like if you've noticed, like, have you seen a lot of Yeti commercials or ads with a suburban mom? Unless that suburban mom likes to go like hunting or something.
Sure. Yeah.
No, you don't.
Yeah. In other words, understand what your moats are, right? Like we've talked about moats before, which is just like, what are the things that protect your brand? Is it the knowledge of who exactly your customer is? That's a moat of yours. Is it the content you create and how you demonstrate it? That's a moat, right? There's certain things that doesn't matter what happens with an algorithm. It doesn't matter what happens seasonality wise. Like if you have certain moats around your business
that you don't lose sight of,
just maximize those. Yeah, a lot of people do lose sight of them. They're the things that like entered them into the business, and then they start to like try to differentiate it even more, go into other realms, and they start to kind of lose sight of those moats that can hurt their business. So,
well, and going back to Yeti, they've posted their best D2C year ever, and everyone's entered the Tumblr space.
It's true. And like the cooler space.
Their competition has not gotten easier. It's only gotten harder.
Oh, yeah.
But they have stayed true to what their moats are. They know who they're targeting. They know why they sell. And they continue to build on that. And so most people just give up and like, oh, we gotta start advertising to like a million different people. But it does not appear that Yeti has ever taken that approach.
No. The other thing this is just a couple other things that Yeti's doing, like that, like they've dived deep into some collaborations too, right? Like they did a big collaboration with their tumblers with the Good golf team. For those of you who know who those guys are, they're just big YouTubers that garner a ton of attention. So they did a collab with them. They did a collab with, I think it might've been last year with Liquid Death. Remember that collab with the coffin?
Oh, yeah, they turned a coffin
into a Yeti cooler.
Wasn't it like $40,000 or something?
Sold it, yeah. Like they had a bidding. They had like a bidding war on it, you know. So they're going strong, not only in making sure that they're like advertising to the right people, but also like getting in front of new eyes. So sharing other distribution with other people. So
let's get after it. It'll be a good year though.
Maximize winning moments. Use the senses to showcase your product and your solutions, and dial in your moats. TLDR. You can fast forward to that
TLDR.
That second right there.
All done.
All right. Sorry we were gone last week, everybody. We will, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next week. Thank you so much for listening to the Unstoppable Marketer podcast. Please go rate and subscribe the podcast, whether it's good or bad. We want to hear from you because we always want to make this podcast better. If you want to get in touch with me or give me any direct feedback, please go follow me and get in touch with me. I am at the Trevor Crump on both Instagram and TikTok. Thank you, and we will see you next week.